probably about as many 8th graders in the first confirmation student as there are people in this pew right now. So it was a pretty big church. When I walked in, I realized that I was with a group of fellow rebellious women, and they did not reserve a space for the Bible study. So we secretly met in a nursing room off of one of the biggest women's bathrooms at the church. So there were 9 of us sitting around or lined around the room in matching rocking chairs in a dark room, just studying the text, rocking back and forth. And a woman started to read the text over again when all of a sudden another member of the group stopped everyone and said, "Now is the time to pray." I wasn't really used to all of this, but I was here for it. It was a good vibe. I wanted to participate. And so this person started reciting everything she knew about everybody who was in the room and wanted to pray for them. And it was then that I realized that I was not a member of this space, but just a guest. You see, I had never prayed for the speedy installation of a marble countertop, but I was proud to have painted our bathroom for the first time with my husband, and we are still alive to tell that story today. I had never known the stress of flying internationally with children, but I did take an Italian cooking class with Alessandra downtown, and I did burn my finger. I had never been blessed with Beyonce tickets in Chicago and had the time and resources to make that trip a reality on a whim. Actually, in this group, I didn't really feel like I was blessed like any of the others, so I decided not to return. Because I think I was confused in this space. When we think of blessings, a lot of us think of fortunes, things that we have and have been given. But Jesus, as Jesus does, turns our understanding of blessings upside down and inside out. The first century Jewish understanding of the word blessing is God's favored. Yes, Jesus loves us, but we aren't all God's faves all of the time. Today, Jesus announces God's favor to the poor, to the hungry, the weeping, the hated, the excluded, the reviled, and defamed. And I know that maybe some of you are like me, and you want to put yourself in here, but maybe if we use words like being spiritually poor or spiritually hungry, maybe if we focus on the words that way, we won't have to examine our whole lives and how we're living them. But Luke's gospel doesn't let us get away with that. Luke's gospel is very much centered on the socioeconomic dynamics amongst the people. We're supposed to face the messiness and understand when we are and when we are not favored by God, by the ways in which we live our lives and treat others around us. Jesus knew of the social power dynamics amongst his people. Poverty was sort of a revolving class of people with misfortunes, whose misfortunes prevented them from sustaining their place in society. Anyone working for daily wages who had not inherited wealth was considered poor and needy by the wealthy elites, not because they lacked money, but because they lacked a certain social position. So woe to you who are rich. The rich are not those who just have money, But the ones who got their money and their possessions by exploiting others and taking advantage of others' weaknesses. The rich were those with certain kinds of social status that were afforded by unearned privileges. They were kings and generals who felt comfortable overstepping social boundaries. The rich were made rich by making the poor poor. Sound familiar? As St. Jerome said, every rich person is a thief or the heir of a thief. The rich and the poor depend on each other, just like the liberation of one of us is liberating for all of us. God will always love us, but God's blessing and God's favor is with those who are on the margins. Now, I don't know what anybody else was doing here last Sunday, 'cause I skipped. No, I'm just kidding. We had a great time skiing with our young people in Boone, and then we spent the night in Ames, and it was wonderful. And everybody had to depart quickly because there was something on the TV that evening, the Super Bowl. And as many of us gathered around to watch the Super Bowl, there were quite a few of us who really anticipate the Super Bowl halftime shows. Well, this year, some Americans squirmed in their seats watching Kendrick Lamar's performance as he took to the field. By Monday morning, white fragility was in full force across the internet, draped in coded language, saying, "We need a show for everyone." But let's be clear here. Everyone was just a euphemism for whiteness. But this performance, it wasn't designed for white comfort. It wasn't meant to cater to the mainstream that historically excludes and dilutes hip-hop culture and black artistry as a whole. Some of my most wonderful white loved ones wrestled with feeling left out and longing to see themselves reflected on that stage. But they didn't. And that's the whole point. The power of the performance is that it othered the oppressor right in front of all of us. It made white audiences feel, for once, like guests rather than the default. That is something rare, a blessing not for all of us, but a blessing for black joy, a blessing for black resilience, and a blessing for black liberation. You see, it is up to all of us to seek solidarity with Jesus in the blessings of this life. And if we are to gather in crowds, drawn to his ministry of healing in a world that aches to be whole, we must first open ourselves up to be healed, because transformation begins within. So I leave you today with a few questions. How am I complicit in today's deep social divide? Where is Jesus moving in the midst of these divides? And am I willing to follow him there?